Hello there everyone, my name is David Luchford and welcome to lesson 28 of my Ancient Greek course. In today's lesson we are going to be putting our knowledge of the third declension into practice once more, and we're going to be doing that with a particular focus on 3G nouns and 3H nouns, which we learned about in the last lesson. But before we get started, let us take a look at my virtual sets of shelves. If we do that, then we shall see that in the past week we have had 2 new donations. One of them was by Luchford. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly this time, okay? Luchford gave me advice concerning how to pronounce his name. He said that double L is pronounced like a Spanish J, and I consulted somebody who knows Spanish, and I was told that Spanish J is pronounced like and you told me that X in your name is pronounced like SH, so I believe it should be Luchford, okay? Please do tell me if I'm pronouncing it more correctly, or entirely correctly now. I hope that I am. Anyway, Luchford kindly bought me 7 virtual amphorae, such a great quantity that I could not fit them all on one shelf in this virtual set of shelves, so I had to extend the shelf to accommodate them. So Luchford, thank you very much for your continued support of the channel. I greatly appreciate it. And in addition, Stepanos, or Stephen, also bought me 5 virtual amphorae. So Stephen, thank you very much for that. And Stephen wrote his name in the Greek form. He put Stepanos. And now, as a fun fact for you, ladies and gentlemen, Stepanos was a proper name in ancient Greece, and it looked like this with the capital sigma, but it was also a common noun. Okay, and when it was a common noun, Stepanos, it meant crown or wreath. And it meant that because the verb stepor, which it's derived from, means to encircle or to put around. So a stepanos was something that was put around something else. Hence why stepanos means crown or wreath, or in general, something which encircles something else. And it can mean prize as well, since it has the meaning crown or wreath, and they were given as prizes for winning competitions. It can mean prize in general too. And therefore, the name Stephen is derived from the ancient Greek word for crown, wreath, or more generally, prize. And as a fun revision question for you, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you that the proper name, Stepanos, and also the common noun, Stepanos, both end in os in the nominative singular, and in addition they end in ou in the genitive singular, and they're also both masculine. In light of their nominative singular and genitive singular endings, os and ou respectively, can you tell me which declension these nouns belong to and which subgroup within that declension they belong to? I hope that you can. Because the answer is that they are second declension nouns, and in particular they are 2A nouns. We know that because they end in os in the nominative singular and ou in the genitive singular. So I hope that you got that right. And another thing about Stepanos is that he's the very first person to request that his amphorae be customized. You can see these beautiful blue amphorae here. He asked for his amphorae to be an ocean blue colour, and I have tried my best to fulfill his request. Now, that has always been an option, but like I said, he was the first person to do it. If you would like to buy me a virtual amphora or virtual amphorae to support the channel and potentially request a customization, then you can do so by going to the link in the description below. But do bear in mind, as I've said before, I am no digital Da Vinci, but if you want me to change the colour or something, then please do mention it in your message. But anyway, thank you very much, Luchford and Stepanos, for your support. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you very much to everyone who has supported my channel historically also. These amphorae and all of the comments and likes and subscriptions are so encouraging. With that said, let's get on to third declension practice exercises part 4. And let's start with a classification exercise. But one final thing before we get on to exercise 1, and that is there is going to be a party at the end of this lesson, okay? We're going to have a little party to celebrate our finishing the third declension. So do stick around for that, okay? Don't forget about the party. But with that said, let's get on to exercise 1, classifying nouns. Here you have 8 different nouns in their dictionary form. All 8 of these nouns are third declension nouns, but they belong to different subgroups of the third declension. Moreover, they all end in upsilon sigma in the nominative singular. But sometimes that upsilon is part of a diphthong rather than just having upsilon sigma. Anyway, overall, to identify the subgroup of each of these nouns, you need to look at the nominative singular ending, the genitive singular ending, and the gender. Here we do need to look at the gender because at least one of these nouns is a 3A noun, okay? And 3A nouns are identified in virtue of the fact that they have os as their genitive singular ending, not uos or eos, just os, and then they're either masculine, feminine, or common gender. So we do need to look at all 3 forms to tell which subgroup of the third declension each of these nouns belongs to. But as we're focusing on 3G nouns and 3H nouns, you know that there will be some 3G nouns and 3H nouns amongst them. So please do pause the video and state which subgroup of the third declension each of these nouns belongs to. Okay, to go through the answers, the first one, pouce, means foot, and it is a 3A noun. We know that because the genitive singular ends in os, and it is masculine. And the genitive singular ending in os just had os, okay? It didn't have uos or eos or anything like that. It just had os as the ending, okay? Added on to the oblique stem pod. And so that lets us know that it's either a 3A noun or a 3B noun, and we need to look at the gender to tell which of those it is. Because it's masculine, it's a 3A noun. If it were neuter, it would be a 3B noun, because all 3B nouns are neuter. Number 2, basileus means king, and it is a 3G noun. This one was more straightforward to recognise a subgroup of, because its nominative singular ends in eus, and its genitive singular ends in eos, and that makes it a 3G noun. Number 3, perchus, meaning forearm, is a 3E noun. We know that because its nominative singular ends in us, and its genitive singular ends in eos. And in particular, this combination of endings means that it is a 3E noun of the second kind, like presbus, meaning old man, or in the plural, ambassadors. Number 4, martus, means witness, and it is a 3A noun. And we know that because its genitive singular ends in os alone, and it is common gender, that is either masculine or feminine. Number 5, mus, means mouse, and it is a 3H noun. We know that because it ends in us in the nominative singular, and it ends in uos in the genitive singular. Number 6, hippeus, means horseman or charioteer, and it is a 3G noun. We know that because it ends in eus in the nominative singular and eos in the genitive singular. Number 7 is hus, which means pig or boar, and it is a 3H noun. We know that because the nominative singular ends in us, and actually here, upsilon sigma is the entire nominative singular form. So that makes this noun quite unique and distinctive in that what would usually just be the ending of a 3H noun is actually the entire nominative singular form of this noun, except we've got a rough breathing over the upsilon, so it's hus. And there would be a circumflex there, so it is a long upsilon. I should have mentioned there would also be a circumflex over the upsilon in mus there, so it would be a long upsilon in the nominative singular there too. Anyway, hus shows us that it ends in us in the nominative singular, but it is the whole form here. And in the genitive singular, it ends in uos. Once again though, huos is the whole genitive singular form, because it's quite a tiny noun. The oblique stem is just hu. But from the ending us and uos, here we've got hus and huos, we know that it's a 3H noun. Finally, botrus means a bunch of grapes, and it is a 3H noun also. We know that because it ends in us in the nominative singular and uos in the genitive singular. So I hope that you correctly recognised which subgroup each of these nouns belongs to. Here are the new nouns that we've just met, organised by subgroup and organised alphabetically within their subgroups. Let's talk about some links to English in order to help us remember the meanings of these nouns. Martus, meaning witness, gives us the word martyr. If you transliterate the oblique stem, then you actually get martyr. And it did come to mean that later in Greek as well, in the Christian era, because a Christian martyr was somebody that died bearing witness to the truth of Christianity. And that's where we get martyr from. But in the classical period, martus meant witness in the general sense, like a witness of a murder. The word pous, meaning foot, has the oblique stem pod, and this is where we get words like podiatrist from. A podiatrist is a foot doctor. And so you can remember that to remember that pous with the oblique stem pod means foot. Percus meaning forearm. I'm not immediately aware of any derivatives from, but I'm sure there are some, you know. Maybe in some medical terminology there's terms about the arm or forearm that involve pech. See if you know any, okay? If you know any, please do share them in the comments below. The next one, Basileus, meaning king, gives us the name Basil in English. I'm not sure if that helps us to remember the meaning, but it is a link to English nonetheless. If you can remember we get the name Basil from the Greek word for king, then it might be a useful link for you. The noun hippeus, meaning horseman or charioteer, is derived from the Greek word hippos, meaning horse, which gives us the word hippo in English. Hippopotamus comes from two Greek words, hippos and potamos. Hippos is horse, potamos is river, so a hippopotamus is a river horse etymologically. Anyway, if you can remember that hippeus comes from hippos, and hippos means horse, and then if you can remember that the eus ending is used quite often for roles, then you might be able to remember what is somebody's role associated with horses, and you can think, well, that's a horseman or a charioteer or a rider. But don't confuse hippeus with hippos. Hippos is a 2A noun, it means horse. Hippeus means horseman or charioteer. Remember that link to roles, okay? 3G nouns are often roles. Botrus, meaning a bunch of grapes, I am not immediately aware of any derivatives from. If you know any, please do share them below. Mus, meaning mouse, gives us the word mouse. And it sounds quite like mouse, right? I know it sounds more similar to moose, but it does also sound a bit like mouse. So if you can remember that mus does not mean moose, but rather mouse, then that should help you to remember the meaning. And finally, hus means pig or boar. That one I am not aware of any derivatives from either, but I imagine there are some scientific terms concerning pigs or boars that involve HYS. I would have to check though. Anyway, we have made some links to English there, and I hope that they help you to remember the meanings of at least a few of these words. Anyway, please do pause the video and note down these nouns, their meanings, and their subgroups, and also the oblique stems of the 3A nouns. Before we go on to the next exercise, here are the 3 3G nouns and 2 3H nouns that we've already met. So please do make sure that you know these before going into the next exercise. You should, as they were mentioned in the last video, but this is a reminder nonetheless. Please pause the video if you do need to note them down, but otherwise we are going to move on to exercise 2, which is a parsing exercise. You know the routine at this point. Here we have 10 3G or 3H nouns in different grammatical forms, okay? And your task is to state the gender, case, and number of each of these nouns. There are multiple possibilities for some of these nouns. So please do pause the video and using your knowledge of the noun's gender, either by knowing the subgroup or by having learned the gender individually, and using your knowledge of the endings to recognise the case and the number of each of these nouns, please state the gender, case, and number of each of these nouns, listing all of the possibilities that you can think of. Okay, we're now going to go through the answers. Number 1, basileus, is masculine nominative or vocative plural. Now, the way we know the answer for each of these nouns, I'm going to summarise here just with the first one, and the same strategy will apply to all of them, is as follows. We know the gender either by knowing the subgroup and knowing that all nouns in that subgroup are of one gender, which we can do with basileus, for instance, because if we know that basileus is a form of basileus and that basileus is a 3G noun, and that all 3G nouns are masculine, then we can say that it's masculine, even without having learned that individually. However, other nouns, in particular 3H nouns in this exercise, you do need to learn the genders of individually, okay? So those are the two ways that we can know a noun's gender, either by knowing the subgroup and knowing the gender of nouns in that subgroup, or by having learned it individually. And what about the case and the number? Well, we know that from the ending of the noun. So here, for example, we know that the ending es is the nominative plural ending, or at least one of the nominative plural endings, because there are two actually, for 3G nouns. And so this has to be nominative plural, or since we know that the vocative plural is always identical to the nominative plural in Greek, this could be vocative plural. And that's why we've said that it's either nominative plural or vocative plural. Anyway, I'm not going to repeat the strategy because the strategy for knowing the gender, case, and number is the same for each of these, so let's just go through the answers. Number 2, ichthюos is masculine genitive singular. Number 3, hypei is masculine vocative singular. Number 4, honea is masculine accusative singular. Number 5, mu is masculine vocative singular. Number 6, amporeas is masculine accusative plural. Number 7, hus is masculine or feminine nominative singular, or masculine or feminine accusative plural. And the reason for that, in the case of this noun, I will mention, is because the ending us for 3H nouns is either the nominative singular ending or the accusative plural ending, because remember that there are two potential accusative plural endings for 3H nouns. There's uas and there's just us. And therefore, the ending us is an ambiguous one for 3H nouns. It could be either nominative singular or accusative plural. Here we've got a tiny noun and the ending is the entire noun, and therefore hus, which would usually just be the ending us, is an ambiguous form. It's either nominative singular or accusative plural. So it could mean a boar or a pig, where that boar or pig is the subject, or it could mean pigs, where those pigs are the direct object. Number 8, basilei is masculine dative singular. Number 9, ichthysin is masculine dative plural. And finally, number 10, hues is masculine or feminine nominative plural. So I hope that you successfully identified the gender, case, and number of each of these nouns, recognizing all of the possibilities where there were multiple possibilities. Okay, let's now go on to exercise 3, which is a translation exercise. Here I have 10 Greek sentences for you. I've got 5 on the first slide and 5 on the second slide. I should just mention that these sentences do use nouns from other declensions as well, but you've already met them, and so you should be able to translate them. However, as our focus is 3G nouns and 3H nouns, I've tried to include quite a lot of those. Anyway, please do pause the video and translate these 5 sentences into English. Here you have the other 5 sentences, and you've got a few more words in the word bank this time. In this instance, there are a couple of things I should say, and those are just about this word ara here. Ara, as I put down here, indicates that the sentence is a yes or no question, and the word is not translated. You can think of it as meaning, is it the case that? But you don't translate it as that, okay, because there are nicer ways to word a question in English. Ara, appearing at the start of a sentence, is just indicating that that sentence is a yes or no question. And in actual Greek, there would be a circumflex above this first alpha, so that's why it's a long alpha, and you pronounce the word as ara. That's important to note because there is a different word, ara, which has a short alpha at the start, but this one is a long alpha. It would usually have a circumflex here. But I'm not putting accents on my Greeks, and that's why it's not there. Anyway, bearing that in mind, please do pause the video and translate these 5 sentences into English. Okay, let's now go through all 10 of these sentences. The first one is Oi moi, kleptes ton amporea ton tu basileos nun kleptei. You should have translated this one as Oh no, a thief is now stealing the king's amphora. We know that it means this because oi moi is oh no, or an equivalent expression. And then we have kleptes. Kleptes is a 1D noun, and it's in the nominative singular here, which we know from the ending es, which for 1D nouns is the nominative singular ending. For 1D nouns of the first kind, I should say, because there are 2 kinds. There's those in es, those in as. Kleptes is one that ends in es, and it is in the nominative singular here. We don't have the definite article before it, so we would just say a thief rather than the thief. And then we have ton amporea, which is the amphora, but here it's in the accusative singular. We know that from the definite article ton, and also from the ending ea, which for 3G nouns is the accusative singular ending. So we know that the amphora is the direct object. Then we have ton again. We've got a repeated definite article. And after the repeated definite article, we've got a genitive form of the definite article. In particular, it's the masculine genitive singular definite article here, going with basileos. And therefore, we've got the repeated article construction here being used to deploy a genitive phrase. So we've got the amphora as the direct object, and we're told that the amphora is the one of the king. So we've got a thief as the subject, and the king's amphora, more literally the amphora of the king, as the direct object. Then we have nun, which means now, and we have klepte, which is he, she, or it steals or is stealing. We had to get the meaning of kleptor down here in the word bank. The ending a makes it he, she, or it that's doing the action. So, overall, we had oh no, a thief is now stealing or now steals. Literally, the amphora, the one of the king, but we could say, oh no, a thief is now stealing the king's amphora. Number 2 is Hai gunaikes tus tu hypeos perches taumas dousin. You should have translated this one as the women are amazed by the horseman's forearms, or the charioteer's forearms. Interesting sentence. And you should have translated it as this because Hai gunaikes is the women in the nominative plural. We could know that either from the nominative plural form of the definite article here, in particular it's the feminine nominative plural form of the definite article, or from the ending s. which is the nominative plural ending for 3A nouns. Both of these things let us know that the women are the subject. And then we have tous tu hyperos perches. Now, we have two forms of the definite article next to each other here. The second one is a genitive form of the definite article. And the first is not a repeated definite article, so here we've got the sandwich construction being used to deploy a genitive phrase. So this tous must be going with perches, and tu hyperos is a genitive phrase that's been sandwiched in the middle. So tous perches means the forearms, and we know that the forearms are plural, and also the direct object, that is in the accusative, because of the form of the definite article and the ending ace. But the ending ace is an ambiguous one for 3E nouns. It's either nominative plural or accusative plural. Here we know it's accusative plural because of the definite article tous. And then we have tu hyperos sandwiched in the middle. So this is literally the forearms of the horseman, or the horseman's forearms. And the horseman's forearms are the direct object, since they're in the accusative. And if we look at the verb here, taumasdusin, which means they are amazed by, or they wonder at, we know that they are doing it from the ending usin, then we can piece the sentence together. Because we can see that the women are amazed by, literally, the forearms of the horseman. But we could say the women are amazed by the horseman's forearms. And here is an illustration of that sentence. Hai gynaikes tous tu hyperos perches taumasdusin. What a great illustration. Let's now go on to number 3. Number 3 is diatik sipos ou peres or hypeu. You should have translated this one as, why are you not carrying a sword, horseman? Or why do you not carry a sword, horseman? Or why are you not bringing a sword, horseman? There are different ways of translating it. Any of those would be fine. We know that it means this because diati is the question word why. And then we have xipos. This is a 3C noun, and for 3C nouns the ending os is either nominative singular or accusative singular, so we need to look at the rest of the sentence to know which of those it is. After that we have u peres. Perro is the verb to carry. Here it's peres, so this is you singular carry or are carrying. U means not. So you are not carrying or you do not carry. And because the subject is you, we now know that xipos, the sword, must be in the accusative. It can't be the subject. It can't be in the nominative. So we've got why do you not carry a sword, and we say a sword because there's no form of the definite article before it, or hypeu, literally, O horseman. Here, horseman or charioteer is in the vocative singular. The ending eu is the vocative singular ending for 3G nouns. And you could have said O, or you could have left that out of your translation. But that's why it meant, why are you not carrying, or why do you not carry a sword, horseman? Number 4 is poi trachusin hoi pones tu martyros. You should have translated this one as, where are the murderers of the witness running to? Or you could have said, where are the murderers of the witness running? Or where are the witness's murderers running? Any of those would be fine. We know that it means this because poi means where in the sense of where to. You could have just said where, or you could have said where to. But it always means where in the sense of where to. And we know it's a question also by the semicolon at the end, which is the ancient Greek question mark. Then we have trachusin, which is they run. We know it's they from the ending usin. And then we've got hoi pones, so this tells us who that they is, because hoi is masculine nominative plural, and the ending ace for 3G nouns is the nominative plural ending. So this is the murderers, and the murderers are the subject, so they're the ones doing the running. So where are the murderers running, and we're told something more about the murderers here, namely that they are the murderers tu martyros. This is the witness, but it's in the genitive singular. We know that from the form of the definite article and also from the ending os being added on to the oblique stem. The ending os for 3a nouns is the genitive singular ending. So we have the plain deployment of the genitive here, and so overall we've got where are the murderers of the witness running to. You could say to, or you could have left it out. Number 5 is poneusin ulegor. You should have translated this one as I do not speak to murderers, or I am not speaking to murderers. We know that it means this because poneusin is murderers, and in particular it's in the dative plural. We know that from the ending sin, which is the dative plural ending in the third declension. 3G nouns in particular have eusin as the full dative plural ending. And then we've got u, meaning not, and legor, which means I speak. So, I do not speak to murderers. Number 6 is ara tus hus en doi orei horais. You should have translated this one as, do you see the pigs on the hill? We know that it means this because ara indicates that it's a yes or no question, and that it's a question is also confirmed by the question mark here, the ancient Greek question mark, the semicolon. And then we have tous hus, which is the pigs or the boars, and they are in the accusative plural here, which we know from the form of the definite article. Hus is an ambiguous form. It could be nominative singular or accusative plural, but we know it's accusative plural from the masculine accusative plural definite article here. Then we have en doi orei. En means in or on, and it governs the dative. The thing that's after it, therefore, goes in the dative, and that is doi orei. This is the noun oros, meaning mountain or hill. You could have said mountain instead of hill. And here it's in the dative because it's following en. So it means on the mountain or on the hill. So far we've got the pigs or the boars on the hill. And then we have horais. Horais is hora plus ace. Hora plus ace makes horais, meaning you singular see. But it's a question. So we say, do you see the pigs on the hill, or the boars on the hill, or on the mountain? Number 7 is botruas hoiandres polusin. You should have translated this one as, the men sell bunches of grapes. We know that it means this because botruas is bunches of grapes, and these bunches of grapes must be the direct object. We know that from the ending us. 3H nouns have two accusative plural endings. They can either end in us or they can end in uas. This one ends in uas. Us has been added on to the oblique stem, which ends in u. And therefore, botruas means bunches of grapes, and these bunches of grapes must be the direct object. Then we've got hoi andres, meaning the men, and the men must be doing the action because we've got the masculine nominative plural form of the definite article, and we've got the ending s. So the men must be in the nominative plural, they must be the subject. And then we get the verb at the end, polusin. We can see in the word bank that poleor is the verb to sell. Pole plus usin makes polusin. So this means they sell, and we know who's doing that selling. We know it's the men. So the men sell bunches of grapes. Number 8 is hoimues ton diuron pilusin. You should have translated this one as, the mice love the cheese, or you could have said, mice love cheese. But I wouldn't have expected you to say that yet, because I haven't mentioned yet that the definite article can be put before a noun to make that noun a class, to refer to that noun in the abstract. So this could be, mice love cheese, or it could be talking about particular mice and saying, the mice love the cheese. Anyway, we know it means this because the mice are in the nominative plural, which we know from the definite article and from the ending s. And then we have ton tiuron, which is the cheese in the accusative singular. We know that from the definite article and the ending on, which is the accusative singular ending for 2a nouns. And we have the verb pilusin, which is pileo, the verb to love or to like. Here it's pile plus usin, making pilusin, meaning they love or they like. So the mice love or like the cheese. Or you could say mice love or like cheese. Number 9 is Hoaner tas oprus tes gunaikos taumas dei. You should have translated this one as, the man is amazed by the woman's eyebrows. We know that it means this because the man is in the nominative singular, which we know from the definite article and from the nominative singular form of the noun being used. So the man is the subject. Then we have tas oprus, which is the eyebrows. And these are in the accusative plural, which we know from the form of the definite article and from the ending us, although the ending us is an ambiguous ending. So what actually guarantees it is the form of the definite article here. The context would also let us know if we didn't have that, but since we've got it, we can know from the definite article, tas, which is the feminine accusative plural definite article, that the eyebrows must be the direct object. Then we have tes gunaikos, which means of the woman, because the woman here is in the genitive singular. We know that from the form of the definite article and from the ending os being added on to the oblique stem. And here we just had the plain deployment of the genitive. So we've got the man as the subject, then the eyebrows of the woman as the direct object, and then we have the verb taumazde. Taumazdo means to be amazed by, and here it ends in a, so this is he, she, or it is amazed by. And here we know that he is the man, so overall it's the man is amazed by the eyebrows of the woman. Or we could say the man is amazed by the woman's eyebrows. Here is a nice illustration of that sentence. Hoaner tas oprus tes gunaikos taumas dei. Another wonderful illustration. And let's finish with number 10. Number 10 is Hodulos botryn kai oinon toi despotei perei. You should have translated this one as, the slave brings a bunch of grapes and wine to the master, or the slave carries a bunch of grapes and wine for the master, or something very similar to that. There are different combinations that are acceptable here. You could have said, the slave is carrying a bunch of grapes and wine for the master or to the master. There were numerous acceptable translations. We know that it means one of these though, because of the fact that the slave is in the nominative singular, so he must be doing the action. We know that from the form of the definite article and from the ending. And then we have botryn kai oinon. Now, botryn is in the accusative singular, so a bunch of grapes must be the direct object. I say a because we don't have the definite article before it. We know it's in the accusative singular by knowing that for 3h nouns, the ending un is the accusative singular ending. Kai means and. It is used to mean other things as well. It can also mean also, for example, but right now we're learning that it means and it's joining these two words together. These two direct objects. A bunch of grapes and wine. Oinos is wine, here it's oinon because it's in the accusative singular. It's one of the direct objects. So the slave is the subject, a bunch of grapes and wine are the direct objects. Then we have toi despotei, this is the master, but here it's in the dative singular, so it's to the master or for the master, and perei is he, she, or it, carries or brings. So that's why we could have said, for example, the slave carries a bunch of grapes and wine to the master or for the master. Now that does finish our practice focusing on the third declension. But before we have our party, let us summarise our learning for lesson 28. In this lesson, we've consolidated our knowledge of how to recognise that a noun is a 3G noun or a 3H noun, and we've consolidated our knowledge of how 3G and 3H nouns decline. We've also consolidated some of our prior learning too. In addition, we've learned quite a few new nouns which are on the screen. We've learned some new verbs, and we've also learned some other new words too. Para indicating a yes or no question, and kai meaning and. With that said, let me say thank you very much for watching the video. I have put an ancient Greek frog in party mode on the screen to commence our party. Okay, we're having a party because this is the end of our focus on the third declension. And if you've been following the course, if you've learned the content of the course, then you can now decline essentially any regular noun in ancient Greek. So congratulations. Okay, it's time to celebrate. With that said, let us get this party started. Do you hear that music? Are you ready for the party? You better be. Okay, I need to get my jacket. Okay, the jacket is on. It is time to celebrate. Let's party.